Okay friends, one of the first things we have to do is safely raise and support the front of our car so the wheel is off the ground. After that, we're going to remove all of our lug nuts and then remove the wheel. Now let's get underneath the front here and we're going to remove this bolt. Now let's remove our flex hose mounting bolt right here. Just be careful because typically they like to break off. A little bit of penetrant will help you along. Now let's remove our axle nut. Use a hammer and a punch. Break your axle free from the bearing. Now with the wheel off of here, we have a nice clear view of our upper control arm. To start removing that, we're going to come right over here to our ABS wire mounting nut. Now with that down, we have plenty of slack in this area. The next thing we're going to do is come right up along here, remove this cotter pin and the nut, and get ready to break this free. Take that nut, start it on there a couple threads. Now we're going to use our hammer and bonk right along this area here. Now we're going to remove the pinch bolt for this right here. Typically you want to spray this with some penetrant and then we're going to knock it down and out of here. Now I'm going to carefully pull down on this knuckle. You want to make sure you don't put any pressure on your ABS wire or your flex hose. Slide that out of there. Now you want to make sure you have a collection bucket underneath the area where your axle is going to separate from the transmission. Of course, a little bit of fluid might come out. Now we'll use a pry bar, get up and in between the transmission and the axle, and get ready to separate the two. There it is, friends. Now with the axle out of the way, the next thing we want to pay attention to is the seal that's on the transmission. Clean it off, inspect it. If it looks like it's damaged in any way, you need to replace it. Okay friends, now it's time to install our brand new axle. Slide it in this way, we'll line it up with the transmission, then slide it in. Now let's slide this into the hub. Now let's just start the nut on here real quick. Now let's get our fork in there. Now let's put in our pinch bolt up here. Now we'll bottom this out and we'll torque it to 32 foot-pounds. Now we're going to put our lower bolt in here. Use a little bit of red thread locker on the threads and some copper never sees on the shaft area. Now we'll put on the nut, snug it up, and then torque it to 119 foot-pounds. Now let's slide this on here, start our nut on. Now let's torque this to 35 foot-pounds. Now the next thing you want to pay attention to is the hole on the stud of the ball joint and the slot of the nut. You want to make sure that they line up so we can put in our cotter pin. If it isn't lined up, you need to continue tightening until the very next one does. Make sure you peen over that cotter pin so there's no way the nut can come free. Let's re-secure the ABS wire. Now let's resecure our brake flex hose here. Now we're going to put our axle nut on here. We're going to go ahead and snug it up. You definitely don't want to put it on with an air gun because you don't want to damage your bearing or anything else. Now we need to torque this to 181 foot-pounds. We want to do this, but we don't want this to spin on us. So I just have a bar that comes across and then it goes down to the ground to hold it for me. Once you have it torqued, you want to pay attention to this area on the axle right here. We want to make sure that we peen the nut down into that area. That way there it holds the nut on. Perfect. Now let's get the wheel back on here. We'll start all of our lug nuts, get the wheel on the ground, and then we'll torque them all to 80 foot-pounds. Torqued. Now let's get under the hood. Okay friends, so we got the car back together. The process for one side will be about the same for the other. Aside from that, take yourself safely down to your local alignment shop.